I think sometimes marketers can get into a habit of completely overhauling their strategy all at once, and then they don't actually know what's had the positive effect. So being careful with how many different tests you're running and how many different variants of things you all have running at the same time. If you are looking kind of broadly at money in the till at the end of the day, you need to know what's affecting that change.
You're listening to the Keep Optimizing podcast to increase your traffic, improve your conversion rates, and grow your profits.
Hello and welcome. I'm Chloe Thomas, the host of this e-commerce marketing focused podcast. If you're not familiar with our format, each month we focus on a different marketing method, and each week I interview a different expert to explore the latest advice on making it work for you. Now, before we get into this episode's info, I want to give a little shout out to one of you lovely listeners, because I love hearing from you all. So when we get a lovely mention on social or someone emails me or DMs me, I like to give you a shout out. So Clavina Crewcamp, hello Clavina. Do not crash your car. Do not fall off your bike. Do not trip over whilst you're running. Thank you so much for getting in contact and letting us know you were listening to one of our episodes recently. And I hope all is going well with your business, The Intrepid Explorer. So, Clavina Crewcamp, here's your shout out. This month, we have been all about offline marketing. So far, we've got into the obvious topics like direct mail, catalogs, in-parcel marketing, and attribution. That was last time. And this time, we're exploring something totally different. We're talking about TV ads. So in this episode, we're looking at what the opportunities are with TV ads, how much budget you need to test them, how to make those tests successful, the targeting that's possible. Now, we are being quite UK specific in this one, but if you listen through to the end, you will hear some of the US advice and where you can do all the things we're talking about, but in the US. And I'm sure in most markets around the world, you can do that too. But yeah, a little bit UK specific, but that's the nature of telly, really, isn't it? Do make sure you listen right to the end of the episode also, because you want to get my guests' quickfire insider tips and you'll want my take on it all. Plus, I'll be letting you know about a couple of other free ways we can help you improve your marketing even more. So stay tuned to the end, everybody. Have you yet downloaded our ebook? To celebrate Keep Optimizing's sister show, eCommerce Master Plan, reaching episode 500, yeah, it's been around that long, we've created an epic e-commerce success-focused ebook. It's packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. And I've personally organised the whole thing into sections, so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need it. This ebook needs to be sat on your desktop. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get 2024's most valuable e-commerce ebook now, keepopt.com/ebook. In this episode, I'm chatting with offline marketing expert Danielle Gipps. Danielle is one of the team at customer acquisition agency Revenue Growth Agency, where they are committed to growing ambitious luxury e-commerce brands through a tried and tested revenue growth framework. Hello, Danielle.
Hello, Chloe. Thanks for having me back.
Brilliant to have you back on the podcast, covering a topic I've wanted to cover for ages. So it's really great to have you here to do it. But before we get into that very cool topic, how has 2024 been going for you? Because you live in Adland and it's been a really boring year in Adland, has it? Nothing's changed.
It's been really busy, and not just kind of with work, but I guess with like all of the changes and everything that's been going on, and a lot of new announcements. And if I hear anyone talk about AI again, I think I might combust, but that's kind of the space that we're in. But yeah, been super busy. Did a speaking slot at Brighton SEO, which was great, covering a lot of the things that we might cover today. I've been having some really great conversations with marketers about brand and brand strategy, and really exciting that more and more marketers are kind of back on the brand bandwagon. So that's been really exciting.
Cool. I love the fact you say if anyone else mentions AI, you might implode. This week I have had a briefing. When I get briefed for my speaking events, I say, is there anything you don't want me to talk about? And for the first time, don't say anything negative about AI has been added to the brief, which I think just shows you the evolution of the conversation about AI. But yeah, let's not get deep into AI. No. So, TV ads, the big daddy, should we say, of advertising. Is it only for the big boys? or can smaller brands play? What's happening in that space at the moment?
Smaller brands can absolutely play, and I think that is a misconception, both from an advertiser's perspective, but also from a consumer point of view. There are connotations that come with TV advertising that, as a watcher of TV, you assume that every brand that you see has a certain level of success and a certain level of budget and revenue to even be able to afford to be on telly. And that's not the case, but it's something that advertisers can use to their advantage, because actually you can appear on TV for not a huge amount of money, but still have the perception of being a really large brand. And I think we're at the point as well where e-commerce brands in particular were very skeptical about using television as a channel because, you're not tracking clicks, you're not sending people to landing pages, but reporting has evolved, but also the way that consumers browse and make decisions and consume content is so different now that I think if you're excluding TV as a whole, you might be missing a trick, and actually it can make your digital efforts more efficient. And we'll cover it, but for instance, like Sky AdSmart has got a very low entry point in terms of how much money you actually have to spend on a campaign. So you can test it very cheaply and then scale up from there if you wanted to, and then start playing with some of the bigger media buyers. But I would encourage all smaller brands to at least explore the idea of television, especially if you're hitting a ceiling with your digital strategy.
So it's not as hard to do in terms of barriers to entry as we think. And then there is kind of a halo effect across our other marketing if we get it right and we get it in the right places. So let's talk Sky TV ads, because they are probably the most advanced, would it be fair to say, certainly here in the UK, the most advanced TV ad targeting place?
Yeah, I would say for targeting, the most sophisticated in the UK.
Got you. We'll get into how sophisticated it is in a minute, but you said that it's a very low barrier to entry. Guessing it's more than £100. So what is that lower barrier to entry?
It's £3,000 minimum spend, which for some of the listeners might be a huge amount of money, and for others might be a drop in the ocean. I think if you were to compare that maybe to what you're spending on other platforms to see whether or not it's going to be cost efficient for you, I think is a good place to start.
Does a £3,000 minimum spend give us enough to know if it's worked or not? Because that's always the other thing is, does it give us enough visibility to be able to tell it's had an impact?
Yes, because you don't pay. It's similar to YouTube advertising, where you will only pay if 75% or more of your ad has been watched.
Oh, okay.
You get a lot of eyeballs on your ads for free if they're not watching the entire ad. So I definitely think that there is enough. I also think as well, for testing purposes, don't need like a huge volume of data. I think you can see correlations with a slightly smaller pool of data to work from, and then decide whether or not you wanted to scale up, or if it's not working for you, which I would highly doubt, then you can put it in the bin. But yeah, if it's like your first trial, I definitely think that £3,000 is enough to test. And also with the targeting, which I'm sure we'll come on to, you can be quite specific as to where you want your ad to show. So you're limiting the amount of wastage, which is something that you can't control with normal linear TV ad buying.
What would a starting point be for normal linear TV ad buying? It's a lot more than 3, isn't it? We're talking 5 figures minimum.
Yeah, it's a lot more than 3. The difference between linear buying and something that is essentially digital, like AdSmart, is that control over targeting. So you're paying a lot more for linear TV. As you say, it's probably going to be like a 5-figure entry point, but the volume of impressions is probably going to be a lot higher. Linear TV consumption is still the largest medium of content consumption across the globe. So although more and more people are watching TikTok, linear TV is still, heads and tails above the rest. So you're also getting people fully engaged because they're watching something on a TV screen. So the quality of someone's attention is a lot higher. So you're therefore paying essentially a premium, but then trying to go alongside that, you're reaching more people. So yes, it is a lot higher as an entry point, but there are still efficiencies that you can make in terms of ad placement, the lay down, so how you want your campaign to be spread over the course of a month. Supply and demand often affects CPMs. I've mentioned this before, that like obviously a Love Island final slot is going to be heads and shoulders above 2:00 on the History Channel because of the volume of the audience and also the niche of the program categories, and there's loads of different things.
But if you're selling cruises down past the Norwegian fjords to the over 70s, then History Channel afternoon is probably a better place to be than between the Love Island final anyway.
Exactly. And it's going to depend on your industry, on your audience, and all of those kinds of things. But unlike AdSmart, where you have a lot more demographic or targeting to choose from, you're kind of just spraying and praying with linear TV. So there are some differences. And I think as a brand, if you're worried about control or about wastage, Sky in particular is a really good place to start. And it's not just Sky channels. Sky owns a lot more channels than you think it owns. So you obviously got like Sky Max, Atlantic, which has got like all of those HBO shows, Succession, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, all of that kind of stuff, Sky Sports, Sky Cinema. But then you've also got the 5 network, MTV, Comedy Central, Discovery Channel. There's loads of channels that are owned by Sky. So, you know, if you think, oh, my audience isn't watching Comedy Central or isn't watching Sky Movies, you'll probably still be able to find a channel or a niche somewhere, and you're able to stipulate where you want your ad to be shown.
Okay, one more question then before we get into how it all works. We said it's a $3,000 ad spend to test it. I'm guessing, and I know you and I have had this conversation on this very podcast before, which is if you're doing social media video advertising, quality isn't that important. Being a bit scrappy but getting your message right probably fits better on the channel. I'm guessing we can't just lift a TikTok ad, put some black on either side of it so it comes up TV shaped, and slap it onto Sky. So is there a bit of a ad budget, ad creation strategy project we need to do to make sure we're creating the right piece of advertising for the TV space, I suppose?
Essentially, yes. You're completely right. You wouldn't necessarily be able to lift a homemade UGC video that's done really well on TikTok, you know, crop it so that it's square and then send it to be displayed on the telly, because contextually it feels awkward. You want your ad to be as least disruptive as possible, and in order for you to do that, your content needs to feel like it belongs with the programming content that is surrounding it. I still am an avid believer that you don't need to have a huge budget for creative, because iPhones are so good at shooting. There's a lot that you can do editing wise, but you will probably have to shoot something new.
Would it be fair to say that a similar style of ad is going to work, but we need to up the production quality? So if we've done a lot of testing on our YouTube ads, our TikTok ads, our video ads on Facebook and Google, and we've worked out that this hook followed by this type of message followed by this outro works really well, it might be a case of contacting that customer that gave the great review and saying, would they come into a studio and be filmed properly? And then we kind of take the same ad story, I suppose, and then we just up the production quality. So we've done all the testing in the cheap format, and now we're rolling out to the more expensive format with a tried and tested story template message that works.
Yeah, I would say if you're running YouTube advertising or kind of PMax demand gen, obviously YouTube being as close to TV in format as you can on a digital channel, I'd say that's probably a good place to start. Taking a look at your data, which videos perform really well. Is there any consistencies with, you know, the opening frame? So for instance, if you're a clothing brand and there is a certain outfit or certain model that appears at the beginning of every video that does really well, you should probably take him or her and use them again, either shoot something new or just try and adapt some of the content that you already have. But you mentioned something really great there, and that's to do with ad story or brand story. You want consistency across your entire marketing strategy, no matter what channels you're using, in my opinion. So the message or the story that as a brand you want your customers to get should be the same. So if you're using a certain strapline on your socials, or if you're using if you're trying to portray a particular emotion, that should be carried through into any new creative that you make, if you know that it works and it resonates with your audience. So you can 100% take a look at what's currently working on your socials and then use that as inspiration, or, do some clever editing. As I say, most of the time, actually, the actual quality, so like the pixel and the frame rate and all of that kind of stuff, is good enough on social because our phones are so good and, we've made so many good advances. But it's just making sure that the style is right for the platform that you're on. Having said that, TikTok do actually run TV ads, and they use TikToks in their TikTok ads. So that's not to say that you can't lift a TikTok video and make it work for TV, but it has to be done in a clever way. So if you want a little bit of inspiration as to how you might be able to use your TikTok videos for TV, take a look at TikTok's own advertising on TV, because they do it really well.
Oh, I love that. Top little tip there. You mentioned that I want to move us into the world of targeting and how precise we can get, how we can make this marketing work for us. You mentioned about YouTube ads being the closest, and that we could trial creative on YouTube to see what works, look at the numbers, and then turn that into our TV ad. So we're a little bit further down the line before we actually start. I'm guessing, would the YouTube analytics and other analytics help us work out how to do the targeting? And what are our targeting options? You mentioned we've got TV channel to TV channel, but presumably it's a bit more clever than that too.
It's very clever, and without scaring anybody, they know everything about you.
Beware if you're a Sky TV subscriber.
Yeah. Sky and Virgin are the set-top boxes, or whatever they're called now. The households that you can target are Sky and Virgin customers. You can do all of the general targeting that we're used to in terms of someone's age and someone's gender and all of that kind of stuff. But they use a really clever, what they've called the Experian mosaic. So they get Experian data, and you can dial down into what people earn. Do they have kids? How old are their children? Have they recently moved house? Are they on, might they be looking for a new car? What are they spending their money on? And all of these kind of changing parameters about people's general behavior. You can also look at people's viewing habits. So, if you are a footwear brand that sells to females who are earning over a certain amount of money and they watch a lot of travel shows, you might think, okay, well, in my mind, then our brand story should be something about like going on holiday, because they watch a lot of travel shows. And we want to place our ads here, here, and here. And we want to make sure that they fit into like ABC1, so they're a more affluent market. So you can start kind of using these puzzle pieces to pull everything together. But yes, they've got a lot of first-party data about all of their customers, and that's the kind of data that you're able to kind of manipulate and use in order to be able to find the people that you want to find. Having said that, do you think that there's a fine line between over-targeting? Because in my opinion, TV is a brand awareness tool. So as much as, the end goal is revenue and you want people to buy, the beauty about TV is that it's so good at creating awareness and recall and reputation for brands that you don't want to have your targeting so narrow that you're only reaching people that probably would have found you on your other channels.
Well, and the other thing that always strikes me is like we're now chameleons as consumers. We're one person here and we're another person there, and then we do other things with other platforms. But also that all the mosaic and those datas, they go down to postcode or household level. And if you think, if you're post-uni and you're house sharing, how different are the people in that house? And if you're still living, you're living at home with your kids, how different are the people in the house? So there's there's a lot of nuance that can be lost. So yeah, I think you said earlier about getting rid of the wastage, and I think taking it as a process to get rid of the wastage. So it's almost like not quite as much as targeted as we used to go with Facebook ads, but not as broad as we go now. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to be, because Facebook and a lot of these other digital channels are becoming so algorithm driven that we actually as marketers don't have a lot of control over who can and can't. TV broadly, so like linear TV, but also like BVOD and ad supported streaming services now like Prime and Netflix and all that kind of stuff, give you the big benefits that you get with TV, which is like undivided attention, a decrease in price sensitivity, brand awareness, brand recall, what that thing I mentioned earlier about perceived size of business, get all of these really good benefits, but you have a little bit of control that you can kind of just like cut away anyone that you know. If you only have female products, if you work in women's health, for instance, you might want to make sure that you're trying to cut out as many men that see your ads. So, being able to have a little bit of control over that. But, you're never going to be able to get it completely right, because a husband and a wife will sit in front of the TV together. So there's a man watching your ad and you can't control that. So, I think the targeting is good and it's sophisticated, and there is a lot of different dials that you can turn on and off, and you can kind of move. There's a lot of moving parts, but I would urge people not to get so bogged down in it all to the point where they're either targeting to within an inch of their life or being worried about, oh my God, like what if a man sees it, or what if it accidentally appears here? It's not the end of the world, in my opinion.
So let's flip to the other side of the world of tracking and data. How do we track the results? I mean, is this, because traditionally TV advertising is super hard to track. You can try unique URLs and that kind of stuff, but basically it's very, very hard to track. Does that become easier with these more more digital TV ad platforms, or is it still all the same challenges?
So it does vary from platform to platform. A linear TV reporting has actually become a lot better. Barb, Comcast, ITV Sales and Sky Media were all kind of clubbed together, and they created a reporting tool called C-Flight, which has been around now for a couple of years, and it's become more sophisticated as they've kind of iterated it over time. And that has made reporting on linear TV advertising better. You're able to now see incremental gains when you add. So for instance, if you're running linear TV and then you decide to add BVOD, it will show you the incremental gains that you get from that, and it's able to distinguish between the two. Linear TV advertising is obviously still tricky, but they're kind of getting there in terms of giving marketers more data to work with. When you're looking at something like AdSmart, or even actually something like new Netflix ads, which can be served programmatically through the Microsoft Digital Ad Exchange, reporting is easier or slightly more in-depth. What you're not going to get is this person watched my ad, they then looked on their phone and searched for me on Instagram, searched for the brand on Instagram, they then got served an ad here, they did an organic. You're not going to be able to trace that entire path, because we're on different devices, and sometimes that's over a course of like months and months and months. But I would say that's probably the same challenges that we have now in digital advertising, or if you're trying to report on out of home or digital out of home. I think attribution challenges are very similar, no matter whether you're online or offline, because we don't have people's data anymore. I have always recommended, and people don't like me for it, but I will continue to say it, looking at trends and correlations, in my opinion, is fine. We launched a Sky ad campaign on the 1st of June, and oh my gosh, I've sat in front of GA4 and suddenly I can see in real time that there's 20-30% more visitors on the site. The only variant that we have is the fact that we've launched a new campaign that happens to be on TV. I would hazard a guess that the two are related somehow. In my opinion, it's okay for you to say that And then you can go away and see, does that continue? Is it consistent, or was it just a one-off? How does that then affect your sales 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line? Because not everyone's going to be in the market to buy your product straight away, right? So it might take them a little while. They might have to see your ad a few times. So looking over a longer period of time. So from an attribution perspective, I think it's the same challenge that you see all the time, but it's just being smart with how you're reading your data to be able to see the effects and not changing too many things at once. I think sometimes marketers can get into a habit of completely overhauling their strategy all at once, and then they don't actually know what's had the positive effect. So being careful with how many different tests you're running and how many different variants of things you all have running at the same time. If you are looking kind of broadly at money in the till at the end of the day, you need to know what's affecting that change.
Love your take on that. Okay, Danielle, thank you so much for giving us so much information about what's happening in TV ads right now. I suspect a lot of the audience are going, I have a whole load of stuff to Google and work out how I'm going to make this happen for my brand. So thank you so much. Listeners, remember you want to stay tuned right to the end so you don't miss out on Danielle's insider tips on all of this and my suggestions for more free resources to help you improve things even further in your business. Have you yet downloaded our ebook? To celebrate Keep Optimizing's sister show, eCommerce Master Plan, reaching episode 500, yeah, it's been around that long, we've created an epic e-commerce success-focused ebook. It's packed with 500 top tips about how to make your e-commerce store more profitable. And I've personally organised the whole thing into sections so you can dip in and dip out and take inspiration as and when you need it. This ebook needs to be sat on your desktop. Download your free copy right now at keepopt.com/ebook. Get 2024's most valuable e-commerce ebook now, keepopt.com/ebook. Okay, Danielle, so far we've gone deep into TV ads. Now you get to wow us with your insider knowledge about the whole of marketing. So for the following questions, your answer can be anything to do with marketing, which of course includes all those things we've already been talking about. Danielle, are you ready for these?
Yes, I am ready.
Let's start with newbie advice. If we've inspired someone to take their first step, what do they need to know to give themselves the best chance of success?
I think just getting stuck in. You can do all the reading in the world, but I think actually like doing things practically is the best way to be able to improve. If you're working brand or agency side, find somebody within your organisation that is happy to answer your questions. It doesn't have to be, in my opinion, anything as formal as like a mentor-mentee relationship. But if there's somebody that you look up to, that you might want their job in a couple of years' time, ask them questions, speak to them, shadow them if you're able to, and try and kind of really get that insider knowledge, and then use that to decide whether or not it is something that you can see doing day to day. Because from my experience, I've worn a lot of hats, and it was equally as important for me to find out what I didn't want to do as it was for me to find out what I did. So if you're new and you're unsure where you want to go or what you might want to specialize in, it's okay if you try something and you don't like it. Like, you can just move on. It's fine.
Nice. I really like that advice. Super practical. Now, once you've started, of course, you've got to keep optimizing. So what's your favorite way to improve performance?
Testing, learning, trying new things, and then like failing fast, moving on. It's slightly more difficult based on what we've spoken about today to kind of fail fast and move on, because it's slightly more all-encompassing. I think digitally it's a lot easier for us to be able to test things, and if they don't work, within a couple of days or a week, putting them in the bin and moving on. Optimizing for TV is more difficult, and I think that's probably the same as other offline channels. Things generally move a little bit slower, things are a bit more expensive, so the risk is slightly higher. But I think doing as much prep as you can, use the data that you already have from the channels that are performing well already, and using that to inform your choices is going to be a really good place to start. And then just leaving things long enough for them to take effect and not looking too short term.
Nice. Okay, cool. Good tips. If someone listening wants to learn more, is there one cheap or free resource you would recommend?
For TV or connected TV in particular, I think I mentioned this before, ThinkBox is a really good resource for TV and for media consumption, so audience media consumption. They do some really great studies with Comcast, Ubiquity and Magic Numbers and a lot of kind of big research bodies. So that's a really good place to start. For connected TV, the American business, MNTN, which is, I guess, their kind of equivalent to AdSmart, Sky AdSmart, release a lot of consumer data in terms of connected TV, case studies, how it's worked for brands, but just be aware that is kind of US specific. And to follow on from what we've spoken about today, Sky AdSmart, their website has some really good case studies. So if you're curious, I would say that's a really good place to look to see whether or not you think it's going to be right for your brand.
Nice selection there. Loving the US take as well. Finally, it's crystal ball time. So Danielle, what's coming up in the next 6 to 12 months that we should be getting ready for?
Oh, dare I say AI? I think you would be naive to ignore it. I think it's coming, but not to let it scare marketers and also not to let it overtake our brains, basically. As somebody that works very much in the creative side of marketing rather than the analytical side, don't let people pressure you into using AI to create things that you know that your brain is better at doing yourself. A robot can't be as creative as us. They don't have all of the life experience that you need as a marketer, or, you know, reading people's body language, knowing consumer habits. It can give you data, but it can't kind of create anything new, because, you know, it's rehashing what's already been done. So I think we need to be careful. I think people should get excited about it. I think it's going to help a lot of people that work maybe more on the analytical side. But yes, stay creative. I hope people stay creative, because I believe that brand marketing is becoming more important. I think it's even more important for us to carry on kind of doing what we've been doing on the creative side of things, and not letting kind of Midjourney or OpenAI start making all of these images and videos for us, because it makes me sad.
And it's not creating good marketing either. There's a place for AI. It's not the whole of your marketing strategy. That's what we're saying here.
No, and also just to add to that, that I think consumers aren't as oblivious to it as we think. So be really careful. If you are starting to generate AI images, I know that Facebook is starting to flag things that have been touched by AI, but consumers aren't stupid, so they will be able to notice. And it could harm the reputation of your brand. We don't know the effects of it just yet, so just be careful.
Yeah, we're seeing LinkedIn starting to flag it. Google's starting to degrade it in SEO. Mm-hmm. I think it's possibly the best way to frame it. So it's not going all in is not the way to go at the moment. Danielle, before we end up diverting on a 2-hour discussion about how the AI space might evolve, we're very nearly at the end of the show. So could you please let the listeners know where they can find you and your business if they want some help with their TV campaigns?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's just my name, Danielle Gipps. So I post a lot on there about kind of creative examples, creative case studies, and a lot of kind of consumer behavior. If you're interested in that, or if you just want to ask me questions about TV, I do answer nearly all of my LinkedIn emails. And you can find my agency also on LinkedIn, Revenue Growth Agency, and then the URL, just revenuegrowthagency.co.uk. I mentioned before, I spoke at Brighton SEO a couple of months ago on a similar topic of treating your social strategy like TV advertising. So if anyone is interested in the presentation deck or any notes on that, then just let me know and I can send that across as well.
Nice. Thank you for that, Danielle. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and giving us the 101 on TV ads. It's been brilliant. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So there you have it, a little dive into the opportunities with TV advertising, which now has a lot of that digital targeting piece to it as well. Lots of food for thought there. If you want us to cover TV ads in more detail, do let me know, and maybe we'll even make a whole month of it next year. You never know. But yeah, get in touch. Let me know what you thought of this one. If you want our notes to the things we discussed, including a link 2, episode 192 in our storytelling month earlier this year, where Danielle got deep into how to create your video ads and how to tell the right story in them. That's well worth listening alongside this one. Then you'll find a link to that and the full transcript of the episode and our notes and more things at keepoptimizing.com. You can also use our special direct to episode short links. That's keepopt.com/the number of this episode. Put that in the URL bar and you'll go straight to the correct page on the site. When you get to the website, why not add yourself to our email list? Then you won't miss out on any of the other things I share to help you improve your business. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Keep Optimizing podcast. Our whole set of episodes about offline marketing is now live, so please do have a listen to them all. Either scroll up your podcast feed or use the short link keepopt.com/offline. And there you will find all our offline marketing content on our website, including both what we've done this month and what we've done in past years too. Our next masterclass topic is TikTok. Yeah, it's TikTok time again. So make sure you tune in next Wednesday to catch that, and make sure you're subscribed to us or following us on your favourite podcast player so you don't miss any of it. If you know someone who's really interested in offline marketing or TikTok, please do let them know we're covering it all, because this show exists to help you and them improve your marketing. Have a great week and make sure you listen to the next episode so I can help you to keep optimizing your marketing.
Access everything Keep Optimizing at keepoptimizing.com. That's with an S, not a Z.
It's time to download the 500 top tips to make your e-commerce business more profitable ebook. Go to keepopt.com/ebook now.